Welcome to Nava Podcast with Leah Cardenas and Stella Pashos.
Let's explore the true essence of Nava.
Nava embodies the concept of beauty in all its forms. It represents the inner radiance that each woman possesses and the unique qualities that make her truly remarkable.
Our mission is to share the stories of inspiring women who are making their mark in the areas of fashion, health, lifestyle, and family. Our aim is to curate meaningful conversations where the journeys and experiences of our guests can inspire you in your own life.
We started this podcast to create a space where everyone can feel beautiful, inspired, and empowered.
Nava is not just a podcast, it's a celebration of the incredible women who have shaped our lives and the countless others who are yet to share their stories.
We can't wait for you to join us. In this episode of Nava, we step onto the turf of international football officiating with a true trailblazer, Joanna. Join us as we explore Joanna's awe-inspiring journey from passionate football enthusiast to FIFA assistant referee at the Women's World Cup. Discover the rigorous training, unwavering dedication, and incredible challenges that shape Joanna's path to the world's most prestigious football tournament. But this episode goes beyond the pitch. We explore the significance of women in football and how Joanna's story is rewriting the narrative of empowerment and equality in sport.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Nava Podcast. I'm Stella, and as always, I've got beautiful Leah here with me.
Hello, everyone.
And today we have my beautiful friend Jo joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Jo, we're so excited to have you on today. For our dear listeners, this one's an exciting one. Today, we're going to take you onto the pitch and behind the scenes and deep into the world of international football officiating. Our guest today is a trailblazer in the world of refereeing. Her name is Joanna Charaktis, and she has recently had the incredible honour of serving as a FIFA assistant referee at the Women's World Cup. And we are so proud and excited for you to take us on the journey that you've had and where you're going to go to next. So, Joanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
We're so excited to get into the conversation, but as always, we do a little 90 seconds with speed dating round so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready, Jo?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. How old are you?
30.
Which city do you live in?
I live in Melbourne.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Melbourne, but I have Greek background, so my family comes from Greece. But yeah, I grew up in Melbourne.
What is your coffee order?
Oat flat white.
If you were a flavour of ice cream, what would you be?
Cookies and cream.
Yum.
Because
yeah, tell me why.
a little bit crunchy, a little bit sweet, not too sweet, a little bit creamy and smooth. And yeah, with each bite, you don't know what you're going to get. It could be crunchy, there could be no cookie in that particular spoonful. I think
I love it.
Sums me up.
What is one word to describe yourself?
Reflective. I think at this point in my life, yeah, I've become really reflective of everything.
That's nice. What is the most adventurous thing you have ever done?
Adventurous. This might sound lame to a lot of people, but for me, it was adventurous when I was forced to jump off the fly deck of our yacht in Greece. It took me 45 minutes to do it. So for me, it was really adventurous, but everyone else just did it within a minute. So yeah.
We need to get some more adventure into you, girl.
Introvert or extrovert?
Exactly. I think I'm both.
Yeah?
Extroverted, introvert, I think.
I understand. Can you speak another language?
Yes, I can speak Greek. Not as good as Stella.
Say something for us.
Yes, Aspedia.
Stella, you going to translate?
It's a bit of a weird one. You know how some languages, there's no direct translation? Because if you directly translate that, it's like, hi, kids. But really,
so she
it's like,
wasn't being rude. It
no,
was nice. Okay, just checking.
she had a smile on her face. She wasn't like, my Marlaques, which is really rude.
Heels, flats, or sneakers?
Definitely sneakers.
What is the first thing you notice about someone?
I reckon, why are you laughing, Stella?
She's answering the questions for you.
Oh, what did she say? I'm curious.
No, you go first and then I'll tell you.
I was going to say the smell. I'm really perceptive to like smells, like if it's perfume, if it's like the washing powder they've used to wash their clothes. Like I think my nose is quite sensitive. So I think that's usually something that hits me pretty fast. What did you say, Stella?
Oh, I was going to say their nose.
Sometimes.
Their nose or their height. But that's, yeah, we're talking dating.
Yeah, I was going to say the height thing definitely is dating.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Eating Top Deck in the fridge.
I love Top Deck too.
Oh,
That's good.
So good. Yeah.
And last one, pet peeve.
Heavy breathing. It's become worse. I think it's become worse since COVID because working from home, it's like silence all the time. And then you go into the office and you can hear people breathing next to you and you're like, this is so annoying.
All right, let's jump in. So we have a lot of exciting things to talk about because you come from a really incredible and rich background in football and would love to delve into that. And then on top of that, you're also a business analyst. Would love to uncover a little bit about your journey of how you've navigated your career alongside football and how you ended up as a business analyst. So we'll get to that too. But do you want to take us back to when you were 15 and share a little bit about your journey starting soccer and the influence your father has had in your football officiating trajectory?
Yeah. So I think like a lot of girls, when I was younger, like when I was probably 11, Bend It Like Beckham came out and we were all like so excited about football. When I say football, I mean soccer for those that listening that, call it soccer. But I watched Bend It Like Beckham and I was like, oh my God, I want to play football. Like that's so cool. And so me and my three girlfriends, we started playing at Waverley Wanderers, which was a local club, and we were playing with the under 12 boys. And it all kind of started from there. So I played soccer or football for about 8 years, I think. And my dad was our coach. He coached our team for a period of time as well, which was interesting. And my dad and my uncle, so my dad's brother, started refereeing. And at this point, I think I was about 16. And our football team, actually, no, we were still playing that year. So my dad started refereeing. He was like, why don't you referee? Like, it's good cash. It's a good, like, almost like a part-time job or casual job at that age. Like, obviously, still in high school. I was working at Baker's Delight at the time as well. So I was really busy. But, yeah, he suggested that I referee as well. So I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. Went and did the course, like it's a one-day course. It was back then. And then I refereed and played for 1 year, which was really busy. I didn't it wasn't something that I picked up and was like, oh my God, I love this. Like, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, this is okay. It was good cash because you get paid cash like at the time, like as soon as you do the game, they give you cash. So, and then the following year, my team disbanded because all the girls were going into year 12. So I didn't actually have a team to play with. So I stopped playing and I was only refereeing. And within sort of 2 years, I was sent to national tournaments, which is sort of like selection for the A-Leagues, or was back then. And just so quickly, like it was like a whirlwind of just getting pushed through I guess the ranks really quickly. I was refereeing on the WPL back then, like the Women's Premier League in Victoria. And by the time I turned 18, I was put on the W League, which is now the A League Women's, as an assistant referee. And it's just been like a really, really cool journey since then. I've been very fortunate to have my dad. He still referees, which is fantastic. He's been a great support. I think that's been crucial to my journey, that I probably wouldn't have stuck with this for so long if I didn't have someone supporting me through the journey. It can be very lonely, the journey of a referee, especially when you're used to playing in a team of, maybe 15 players or 15 girls in our case. When you then go to referee, you rock up to the field, you're on your own, and you've got to do everything on your own. So it's really important to have someone to support you. And I was very lucky to have my father driving me, obviously, because I wasn't driving back then. So driving me to matches and, just being super supportive, and definitely have him to thank for where I'm at now with football.
Do you remember your first game?
I do, because they would put you on at your club. So at the time I was playing at Whitehorse, and the first games I did, I think I was actually on the line. So I was like an assistant referee, which is what I do now. And I was a little bit nervous for sure. And I don't think I had any clue what I was doing. But it was good. It went reasonably well, considering what it can be like as a referee on junior football with parents and angry people yelling at you.
Sometimes as adults, things are so much more daunting than if you were to attempt it at that age of 15 or 16. We kind of had that like go-getter attitude. You're like, what's the worst that can happen? Like sometimes I wish we could channel that as an adult and just get stuck into things. Did you find that it was a lot easier then?
Yeah, sometimes it's like what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
Easier. Yeah, so it's an expectation that can actually make things worse. So when you don't know what to expect, you go into it blindly, and you may not be aware of what can not go wrong, but like some of the negatives or whatever. You just kind of have fresh eyes on it. So yeah, definitely.
So I understand that now you actually do a lot of travel with your refereeing. When did that start, and how often are you traveling now?
Yeah, so in 2019, I was given a FIFA badge. So what that means is that I can then referee international football. So 2019 was a really big year. I did a lot of travel that year. I went to Thailand in May for like a 3-week tournament. Then I went to Malaysia for a course, like a selection course, for like a week. And then I got to go on this really cool trip where we got to go with the young Matildas. So like I think they're under 14 equivalent of the national team. And we got to go to like Tonga and the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu. And it was just like the coolest trip. I went to Hong Kong that year. I went to the Philippines. And then COVID hit and everything stopped. And it was like no travel, no tournaments. And it was a really strange period. And then, this last sort of 12 months with the World Cup has been a crazy time. We were just saying before, I think I calculated it, and obviously 5 weeks was a holiday, but I spent 22 weeks away from home this year, which is just crazy. Like,
wow.
You really learn to miss your bed and routine and all of those things. But I'm really lucky to have a great employer that allows me time off to go travel with football. I'm very lucky. Like, I think it's an amazing opportunity to get to go see a lot of countries that maybe ordinarily you wouldn't go to. Like in April, I went to Tajikistan. And I can tell you, every time I tell someone that I have been to or I went to Tajikistan, they're all like, where is that? Like, no one knows where that is. So
where is that?
It's up with the rest of the stands. So like near Uzbekistan, if people know where that is, like Northwest Asia. Very long way. So from Melbourne, I think it took like maybe like 28 hours. Like it's the equivalent of traveling to Europe. Like it's so far.
Wow. And is soccer big over there?
I guess growing. It's definitely not as big as it is in Australia, but yeah, they hold AFC, the Asian Football Confederation, hold tournaments sort of all over Asia. And from time to time we get to go to, either Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. And do you have to be quite fit to maintain that FIFA badge?
Yeah, so we, I guess there's a few different aspects. So we have to run a fitness test every year to be nominated for our FIFA badge. So we have to stay fit for that. We also do fitness tests every time, well, not every time, but most of the time when we travel overseas for tournaments. So you have to be extra fit because you have to take into consideration the weather conditions that are going to be in whatever country you go to. And for us, being as part of the Asian Federation, a lot of the countries are hot, humid countries. Yeah. And when you live in Melbourne, for those who live in Melbourne and know what the weather's like here, that can be really challenging. Like if you're traveling in July when it's winter, like the middle of winter in Melbourne, and you go to Malaysia where it's like, high 30s, 90% humidity, it can be quite a shock to your system. So you kind of have to be extra prepared and extra fit so that, you're not struggling when you get there. And obviously, the whole purpose of us running fitness tests is to make sure that we have a reasonable fitness level to officiate the matches. We, especially referees in the middle, I'm an assistant referee, but the referees in the middle, often having to, not be as fast as the ball, but sometimes on long balls, you do have to almost try and be faster than the ball, which is impossible, obviously. So, it's quite a load on us, but a lot of training and different aspects of training. Like it's not just endurance. We've got to be fast. We've got to be agile. You've got to have strength so that you don't get injuries. So, it's pretty full on. Keeps me fit, that's for sure.
I want to take everyone back to how you and I know each other. So we actually went to school together at Oakley Greek Orthodox College. Very Greek school. There was like 2 people that weren't Greek in the entire school. So very strong community influence. Everyone knew everyone. And it was a really, really cool place to be before we both moved on to other schools. And you were a year above me and we hadn't actually crossed paths that often in school. Like we played sport together. So
we used to catch the bus together sometimes. We used to catch
the bus together.
But we didn't talk.
I didn't talk. I was at the back. You were at the front. Yeah. And then we both got jobs at Tiffany & Co. Didn't know this until we were on Collins Street, bumped into each other and we're like, what are you doing here? No, wait, what? What are you doing here? We both realised that was the start of us working at Tiffany & Co. together, which was so much fun and really just brought on like a beautiful friendship and so much laughter ever since. And then we actually moved in together too. But what I uncovered from living with you was that your upbringing had such a strong influence in the way that you view health. And I think as we get older, we kind of disassociate that that's been an influence at all. And it's just like a way of lifestyle for you. Can you talk to us a bit about how your parents had really put the value on both you and your sister on, why health is so important, such a valuable element for us to kind of focus on from when you guys were kids?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, or even when I think it was when I was like sort of first born, my dad, who was working in IT, and he still does work in IT, but he was actually studying homeopathy, which is obviously natural medicine based theories. So when we were children, basically, we were brought up with a lot of that theory. We didn't have, for example, like we didn't have cow's milk. We were brought up on soy milk. We had a lot of brown bread. Like we had a lot of healthy food growing up. And so I think that really instilled the importance of, healthy eating, like taking vitamins, and I guess just our understanding of, health and nutrition. which I'm super grateful for now. I think obviously there's like times like when you're a kid and you go to school and like all the kids are eating like chips and roll-ups and LCMs and things like that, you're like, oh, I want to eat those things. And I was, probably at the time slightly resentful that I wasn't eating those things. I had my carrot sticks and my cucumber sticks and, my healthy sandwich and things like that. But now as an adult, it's just like invaluable, like especially as an athlete as well. The focus on eating the right foods and getting the right fuel and nutrition, I think, is really crucial and really important. My sister, it's funny, my sister's actually a dietitian. So she's a little bit older than me, but she studied dietetics. And so, yeah, it's like bouncing off her all the time with, things about, gut health, and which is so important now. Like there's so much research and there's so many articles and just so much talk about gut health and how that links to everything else in your body. And yeah, it's really interesting.
And then oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I think like it's changed a lot since then. Like back in the 90s when I was growing up, I don't think obviously I was very young, but I don't think the focus on that was the same as what it is now, where people really get into supplements, like vitamin supplements and eating well. And yeah, even natural medicine, I think, has come a very long way in terms of popularity and people understanding it and being willing to try those things. So, yeah.
No, it sounds like your parents were like very ahead of the game. And also just that focus on health, I feel like has correlated to your ability to stay so focused on the one thing and instill discipline in that way. Can you talk a little bit about how disciplined you really need to be in your football career? Because again, living with you and in lockdown, I started training with you for company, and those programs are full on, and you have never really ever missed a day of training. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what your fitness routine looks like?
Yeah. So it's been a journey, I think. When I first sort of started refereeing at the elite level, like the W League, etc., we would go to referee training twice a week. So there's group training sessions where, all of the referees from Victoria gather at a training venue and we do like endurance and speed running sort of sessions together. So we would go do that twice a week, and that was all I was doing. And then I can't even remember how I got into the strength stuff. I think someone had recommended it to me. They were like, you should go try this, like these strengths. It was called Acceleration Melbourne, to plug them. And basically they write a program for you. They like assess your body and like your movement and identify areas of weakness, and then we'll program you a strength program and running technique and things like that so that, you can improve your speed and agility and the whole picture. So I started doing that in, I think, 2016, and I was going to Parkville. So at the time I lived in Wheelers Hill, which is southeast for people who don't know where that is. And I was driving to Parkville, which is like where the zoo is, for a 5 a.m. start.
How far is that?
It's like an hour.
Well, there was no traffic at that time, thankfully. But yeah, it would take at least 45 to 50 minutes on the freeway. So I started doing that twice a week, and I did that consistently for like a year. And I think the key to making me do that was that you had, obviously I was paying for this training, but you had to book in the session. So if I didn't want to go, it was very difficult to get out of it. Like you couldn't just wake up in the morning and be like, oh, you know what, I can't be bothered going today, because the trainer was going to be there waiting for you. So it kind of held me accountable. And I think that sort of setup that I had created the good habits for me, or was the very beginning of those good habits. And then as you get older, injury prevention becomes huge. And with what we do, you can't referee if you're injured. So I think you start to understand that if you don't do the work, you're probably going to get injured and then you're not going to be on the field. So I think that's also part of the motivation to keep me going and keep me doing things, is that you just know what the impact is if you don't do it. And I think in time, like over the last few years, it's really become a lifestyle change for me, especially with the World Cup. When I got told that I was a candidate for the World Cup, so for selection, they basically, FIFA announces this long list of like, I don't even know how many, maybe like a couple hundred referees from around the world that are like shortlisted for the World Cup. And then there's a 3-year selection process to actually make it to the World Cup. So they, over the 3 years, they see you at different tournaments and they effectively cut down the list until they get the final 50 referees and 100 assistant referees. And so once I was shortlisted there as a candidate, which was 3 years out, which was around, I think it was during the lockdowns, that for me was like, okay, now I know what I'm working for. And so, yeah, I guess it's like, you know what the goal is, you know what you need to do to get there. And as referees, it's like someone describes it as fitness is like your passport. So you can't travel without a passport. So you've really got to get that foundation of fitness, passing your fitness tests, being fast enough. Again, I classify injury prevention as part of that. That's your passport. It's not necessarily means that you're going to get there, but it's the base foundation of what you need. And so it's become a lifestyle change for me, especially in the lead up to the World Cup. We were training 6 days a week with 1 rest day, 2 or 3 strength sessions a week. I was doing probably 2, what I say, like a medium intensity session. So usually it was like an hour on the cross trainer and then 2 to 3 running sessions a week. So yeah, it was a lot of training. I've reduced it a little bit now because you just can't sustain that for 4 years, not even 4 years. It's just like your whole life. Like you can't, you've got to mentally and physically give your body the rest that it needs. But yeah, it's a pretty rigorous training routine. That yeah, Stella used to come with me. It was awesome. Kept me company.
I was like, yeah, I'm a good runner. I can do this.
She is.
And then
she was
actually so challenging. And there's a lot of work that goes into everything that you're achieving. And I think when people just see, you know, referees coming onto the field, they just think that it's, you know, here they are. And there's a whole lot of criticism that comes with that. And we can talk about that too. But behind the scenes, the work that's involved is just crazy. And I think people need to know that.
Yeah,
I think people don't realise that we're held to quite high standards, especially at the international and national level. I think a lot of people underestimate the high standards that we're held to, especially when it comes to the physical aspect of, being fit, being fast. It's moving really quickly. Like it's only moving forward in terms of those standards getting higher and higher. And the expectations on us in terms of our training and I guess commitment really has increased a lot, which is good. I think it's good for the game. I think it's good for standard of refereeing and all of that.
We'll be back after a short break. If you haven't already heard of Strider, they are the revolutionary insoles featured in this season's Shark Tank.
Strider is the home of happy feet. Their mission is to empower you to move at your best, pain-free. To help you take charge of your life and health from the feet up, Strider are offering Nava listeners an exclusive 10% off with code NAVA. That's Nava at checkout.
Now let's get back to the conversation. How do you maintain healthy nutrition? What are your go-tos? How do you ensure you're doing it right? Because I myself have a 2-year-old and nutrition was so important to me when I started introducing her to foods, and I was like preparing everything from scratch all the time, plus our meals. And it just felt like a lot. Now I feel like I've got a good balance and go-tos and that, but I'd like to know how you're doing it, essentially doing 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, it's hard. It's one of those things that I think always smacks me in the face when I get back from a tournament. So as a side note and a bit of background to people, when we travel on tournaments, so we might go for 1 week, or I might go for 3 weeks, or it might be the World Cup that goes for 6 weeks. We were there for 42 days, right? In that time, you're in a hotel, your washing is done. You got to put your washing in a bag. Your 8 pieces of laundry, you put it in a bag and you put it at the front of your door, and it will get picked up and get washed and returned to your room by 9 p.m. Clean, dry, and folded. Ironed as well.
Lovely.
Cleaners come to your room, obviously, every day. They clean your room, so you don't have to do any cleaning. Realistically, you don't have to make your bed. You get up in the morning, you go down to the buffet for breakfast. You go to the chef, you tell them you want an omelette, they make you an omelette. You tell them you want a coffee, they make you a coffee. Lunch and dinner, obviously, are the same, right? So when you get back, you come home and you're like, oh, I've got to go do the grocery shopping. I've got to decide what I want to eat. I've got to cook it. I've got to wash. I've got to clean. And it kind of, as much as those are the things that you do like regularly, normal life here, you get used to it. As soon as you're away for a period of time and you get back, it feels like 10 times harder because you have to make all those decisions and make time for it and all of that. So I always find when I get back, it takes me like 2 to 3 weeks to settle back in. And it's particularly challenging when I am home for like a week and then I'm away again and then I'm home for a week because I live on my own. So it's like if I go buy stuff and put it in the fridge and I go away for like 2 weeks, I get back, it's gone off. So I'm also conscious of not like having a lot of food wastage and things like that. So I think I'm very fortunate that I work from home in my full-time job as a business analyst, because it allows me to pop out and do the groceries at lunchtime if I need to. If I've been away, like sometimes I get sent interstate on the weekend for the A-Leagues. So I get back on a Sunday night and I haven't done any shopping. So Monday lunchtime, I can go do that. So I'm really lucky in that sense of having that flexibility and that freedom to be able to, maybe start cooking a bit earlier because I'm at home and I can do that. I can put it on and it can start cooking away. I think it doesn't, that the thing that doesn't help is like still trying to decide what to have. And because I live on my own, I have to make that decision. I can't be like, babe, what do you want to have for dinner tonight? Like, it's just me. So I have to decide for myself, which some people might be like, oh, that's so much easier. But I tend to, like, I always have mincemeat frozen in the freezer and it's always my backup. So if I'm really desperate and I can't decide, I'll just cook up a bolognese and, I can have that. I always think about, and this is something like Stella said has come from my childhood, is just always thinking about the nutritional content. So I always have salad with my food, or if I'm not having salad, it's because I'm having a lot of veg. That's always the forefront of like my eating, and then enough protein, enough veg. And then after that, it's like, what do I feel like? So I have to be very organized because I train like 2 days a week. We train in the evenings. So for example, like tonight I have training in Bundoora, which is an hour drive from my house, from 7 till 9. So I'm not going to get home till 10. So I have to have something ready to eat. Otherwise, like the other thing is, it's quite funny, like at that time, like 9 o'clock, 9:30, it's actually really hard to find something decent to pick up on the way home. So that's actually not really an option either. So you really just have to be organized. I've got some staples of things, and you go through phases of what you like to cook. Like last week, I decided to get some like chicken fillets from Woolies and I skewered them and then I put them on the barbecue, and it was so basic, but it was like, they were beautiful. Like they were so delicious. Just a bit of like oregano and salt. And I think that's a bit of the Greek background as well, of just being like, oh, I'll just throw together souvlaki, like really, really basic, a little bit of salad items, some wraps. And it's like, it was great. It was so nice and healthy, obviously. So, I think those are sort of some of my little tips and the way that I try to do it. But it's a battle. It's certainly not a static situation. It's very dynamic. Sometimes it's harder than others.
I think there's so many ways, so many questions I want to ask, but can you take us, well, firstly, I'll say, I think when we see someone going through like, a tournament, or like we see you traveling and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I think you also go through that adjustment period when you come back, which can be quite hard, and the challenges that you face going through, doing your passion and living your passion, which is a beautiful thing. But then some of the challenges are that you miss some milestone events from friends and family. How do you navigate that and balance it?
Mm-hmm. Very hard. And it's funny, like obviously I have a few mentors within football, and they're people that have done what I've done before me, or like at the same time. And they all tell you this: you're going to miss a lot of things. Be prepared. You're going to miss birthdays. You're going to miss weddings. You're going to miss engagements. You're going to miss all these things. And it's just so true. Like, there was like a cloud, I think, while we had COVID and I was home all the time, where you were like, oh, it's not that bad. And then last year was just like very difficult. Like, I missed, over the last 2 years, I missed one of my best friends getting married because I had to go to the Asian Cup, which is something that you just can't. You can't be like, oh, sorry, I can't come. I can't come to this tournament because I've got a wedding. Like, it just doesn't work like that. I mean, you could do that, but you're not gonna get very far. So, yeah, it's very challenging. There's a lot of guilt. Like, you feel super guilty about missing important events for other people. But I guess you just hope that they understand why I do what I do and the commitment. And I guess now that I got to go to the Women's World Cup, it's like, I think a lot of people were like, okay, like, we kind of understand the sacrifice that you've had to put in to get to such an amazing event. The hard part is that it's ongoing. It's not like, oh, you hit one event and then you're done. Like, it's an ongoing battle. I missed, another one of my best friends. I missed her engagement earlier this year for a tournament that was in the lead up to the World Cup. I missed her 30th. I've missed a lot of hens parties. Just so many different events that, I haven't been able to make. But when I am here, I make the effort to make sure that I get to things where I can. It's hard. It's really hard. But I also realize that I'm not going to be doing this forever. Like, with football, it's like maybe 10 years of my life that I have the opportunity to do this. So I think you kind of have to weigh it up a bit like that as well, and understand that it's not a forever thing. And you just have to make the most of, the time that you can do it. And again, just surround yourself with people that support that and understand that. I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is having people that understand the why.
Just going back to the World Cup and when you are on the road, we'll call it. Now, I understand that obviously the teams are obviously close-knit. They're big teams, 15 women, they're in each other's pocket. What do the refs do? Are you like, is there like a little ref club, or are you quite alone during those periods? And what do you do when you're away?
It's really interesting because it's different according to where I am and the type of tournament that it is. So I've travelled on my own before. So as an assistant referee, I could be working with an Australian referee, or I could be on my own. So I've experienced a fair bit of both, and we have to be very dynamic, because sometimes I will work with, as like an example, I worked with Kate at the World Cup. She was my referee, Australian, from Melbourne. But then I can also get sent somewhere with one of the other referees from Australia, which is Casey or Lara, or maybe I won't get sent with any of them. Like, when I went to Tajikistan, I was on my own. So it's a bit daunting initially when you arrive to a foreign location and you don't know the other referees, or sometimes you know them, but you're not obviously as close with them, or you don't have that a close relationship with them. But I can tell you, like, sometimes I think about it and I'm like, it's kind of like Big Brother. Not in the sense of being watched, but in the sense of, you put all these random people into a house, right? And they live together, and within like 2 days, they're all like, it's like they know each other like the back of their hand. Like, you become really close with people. And I think that's what happens when we go on tournament. So the World Cup, as an example, we had referees. I think they said we had referees from maybe like 50 different countries or something like that. And so you've got people that speak English very, very well. You've got people who speak Spanish very well, people that speak Portuguese, and then all the other countries within Europe as well that speak different languages and dialects, etc. So the relationships form quite quickly if you don't already have those relationships. And we become our own team. Like at the World Cup, like they call us Team One, FIFA. And Team One is like, a huge team, 150 referees, right? But yeah, we all you form connections. You form connections with people, and we have each other's backs in terms of being able to share experiences and feelings and things like that. And ultimately, it's just really cool. Like, I've met people from so many different countries, and it's such a humbling experience. Coming from Australia, I think we are very fortunate in a lot of ways, like within football and refereeing, but also outside of that. And yeah, when I travel and meet referees from other countries that, are living very different lives to me, like I've met a couple of girls from Iran, and it's like their experience is so different to mine. And it's just such a truly humbling experience to get to know all these other women from other countries. So I think our team is also, it's not the same because, we're one of the only, it's such a niche, I don't want to say sport because it's not the sport, it's our role within that sport is so niche in that we travel internationally and meet people from other countries and work with them and get close with them, where the girls in the Matildas, for example, they're all Australian. So they've known each other from Australia. They grow up together, whatever. They wouldn't form as many connections with people from other countries until they're playing club football, which is what we're seeing a lot more of now, of women from all around the world getting to play at different clubs, which is really cool. But yeah.
I've got a couple of things. So you were one of 4 selected for the World Cup in Australia. Is that right?
One of 3.
One of 3.
Yep.
So that's like a crazy milestone in and of itself amongst hundreds of people in the selection process over 3 years. And then you've made it to the World Cup. Can you share with us a moment that was like, a special moment from that experience?
There were a lot of special moments. I think that the coolest one was, so obviously for those that don't know, the Women's World Cup was held in Australia. So we were really lucky to get to referee a World Cup on home soil. We were based in Sydney. So obviously being from Melbourne, I wasn't at home, but we were, still got to have all of the benefits of food and coffee and, the water. You could drink the tap water and all of that sort of stuff, right? Like it's something that is really special because when you go overseas, it's not like that normally. You're like, I can't drink the tap water. I got to brush my teeth with bottled water and all that sort of stuff, right? So I think we were really fortunate already with a lot of those things. But when I say we, so me and Kate, my referee, who's also from Melbourne, we got appointed to a round of 16 match in Melbourne at Amy Park, which was incredible. So obviously we got flown back home to Melbourne, and our match was Colombia-Jamaica, which was a pretty cool match. Amy Park was sold out, so I think it was close to 30,000 spectators. We could have our friends and family come to watch without them having travelled. And it was just so special. Like that morning, I got to get up and just walk around the Yarra River. It's a World Cup round of 16 match, and here I am in Melbourne at home. That was something incredible, and not many people will ever get to experience something like that. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for that experience and something I'll never forget. Every time I go to Amy Park now, it's like always going to be a memory. Like I'm always going to remember that match. So, yeah.
It's beautiful.
How many games did you ref during the World Cup?
We did 2. So I had 2 on-field matches as an assistant referee. So we had France-Brazil in Brisbane, which was our first match, that one was in front of like 48,000 people, which was incredible. It was so loud. Like the Brazilian spectators was so loud. And then, our second match was the one in Melbourne, Colombia, Jamaica. And then I also did a offside VAR match. I think it was Netherlands, Portugal. So that was in the VAR room, which was also pretty cool. Just a different perspective on football. But, so 3 matches total, but, 2 on field.
Is that typical for a World Cup to do only about 3 matches, or is that what's the reasons behind that?
It's all performance-based. So I guess there's 2 aspects, right? There's the performance-based element of, you want to put the best performers on more matches. It's also political in that if you, like I can't referee Australia.
Yeah.
I can't referee Australia's group. So any match that is in the Australian group, I cannot referee. My referee team was Kate and myself, but our other assistant referee was from Korea Republic. Korea Republic were in another group, so they weren't in Australia's group. So we can't referee Korea Republic's group or Australia's group. So, I guess with all of the trios or effectively we're in trios, so one referee and two assistant referees. Europe is quite mixed as well. Like they'll have a referee from one country in Europe and then maybe two assistant referees from two different countries. So you can see how very quickly it becomes quite complicated to appoint the right referees that don't have mixed interest. It's not mixed interest, that's the wrong word, but I think you understand what I mean. Like they can't be from those countries or have those countries in that group. So there's a fair bit that goes into appointing the right referees, and then it's also experience. So like at the World Cup, it was my first World Cup. The other assistant referee from Korea Republic, it was her 5th World Cup.
Wow.
So that just highlights like the huge breadth of experience within the referee team that we had at the World Cup. And so obviously that comes into it too, because we know what some of the big matches are going to be, and you want to make sure you've got experienced referees on those matches and you're not throwing, inexperienced referees into the deep end. So there's a lot that goes into appointments. Some people didn't get any matches. Some people got 1, some people got 2, some people got 5. There's quite a spread. So, yeah.
Wow, there you go. And are you in I don't know what the correct word is, running, putting a hand up to do the next World Cup?
That hasn't been, the process hasn't started yet for that. So that process will begin, I think, after the Olympics next year. So I'm not sure, to answer your question. I hope so. I'll definitely be working hard to be throwing my hat in the ring for that. Obviously it's another long process. We don't even know where that World Cup is going to be held yet. They haven't announced that. So it's very much at its infancy stage, but I hope so. I think for me, my next goal is hopefully the Olympics. Would be great to be able to have that opportunity, but all you do is just keep working hard, and you just focus on the next tournament, whatever the next upcoming match is. Like for me at the moment, my focus is on the A-Leagues and having good performances there. So it's kind of like you have long-term goals for sure, but you really just have to take the opportunities that you have in front of you to work on the things that, you need to work on to put yourself in a good position for, selection processes for those big tournaments.
Yeah, of course.
I want to round out the World Cup. I feel like the World Cup, was such a special moment for Australia, being held on our soil, as you said, and the Matildas had a huge success in their run up to the finals or semi-finals. And everywhere I went, I just feel like I was in Noosa at the time and everyone was getting amongst it. Every pub was packed. We love jumping on the bandwagon, as I think we've discussed outside of the podcast too. Australians just love getting amongst it. And it was really special, I think, being the Women's World Cup, because women in sport, it's a emerging, obviously, topic. And we want to make sure that we're diversifying our audiences to the women's sports as best as we can. And I want to know from your perspective, how can we do our bit to continue to support women in sport from our, side of the fence?
Yeah. I guess there's a few different aspects. I think we've seen, like, in the A-League Women's, so the national league here in Australia for the women, for football, I think it was round 1, there was a game in Sydney and it pulled 11,000 crowd, which is huge. So the context to everyone else, like an A-League women's match will probably pull 1,000 people max, like probably a few hundred is a normal attendance. So that something like that was incredible. Like it was, just crazy. And like I saw literally just this morning, they've announced that the Matildas are playing their round 3, which is the last round of Olympic qualification. They're playing against Uzbekistan. They play one match in Australia, one match in Uzbekistan. And the match in Australia is going to be held at Marvel Stadium. I think Marvel Stadium capacity is like, I want to say like 60 or 80,000. So I think the expectation is that that's going to get sold out. And it probably will, because all of the matches that the Matildas have been playing, like they played at Optus Stadium for the previous round of Olympic qualifiers, which is this huge stadium in Perth. And it's pulling big crowds still, which is fantastic to see. I arguably think that they're pulling better crowds than the Socceroos, which is fantastic, which is the men's national team. So I think that there is still momentum there from the World Cup, which is amazing. I think in the A-Leagues it's dropped off a little bit, and like there's many reasons for that. Obviously the quality of product is not going to be the same as a World Cup, so, that's totally understandable. But it's one of those things that if we don't get behind it, it's never going to grow. Every sport or anything in life is not going to grow unless it gets, the attention at the start or the care that it needs to be able to, grow and get bigger and better. So, I think that's the stage we're at with the A-Leagues in Australia. I think we saw the same with AFLW. When that first came in, everyone was really hyped up about it. And then I think it has dropped off a little bit over the last couple of years. But I think it's a slow burn. I think we've come a really long way. If we look back to the A-League women's, or as it was formerly known, the W League 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it wasn't what it is now. It's come such a long way, and women's football has come such a long way. There's a long way to go for sure, but we can't.
We're on the right track.
We can't neglect how far it's come, and the record crowds that we pulled at the World Cup was, again, amazing. And the next one will be even bigger. Like, it's just going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to get bigger. And like, we've got now the home of the Matildas, which was a facility built in Melbourne, down at La Trobe Uni. And it's incredible. Like, we train there sometimes, the referees. And it's an incredible facility, and we wouldn't have had that if we didn't get the World Cup here. So it's like small foundational things, but it's actually amazing. Like, who would have thought that we would get that? So,
even the flow-on effect to, smaller community groups, like Louis' little cousins are like 5 years old. They play for the local community group, and that's where the Matildas used to play, or some of the players used to play at that club. And just the influence that they have and the inspiration, motivation they have as, young females in sport, I think, we're definitely on the right track, and it's beautiful to see how far we've come, for sure.
I think it's like I said to you yesterday, that you can't be what you can't see. And I don't know if Leah's heard of that saying, but it's something that we throw around a lot in refereeing, especially with women, and it's so true. Like, when I first started playing, I saw Bend It Like Beckham, and I was like, I want to play. But I had no idea about the A-League women's or the W League. I had no idea really about the Matildas, but I saw that movie, and it kind of motivated me and made me want to play football. And now look where I am. So with so much more awareness and availability of the game, I think that we will see it still continue to grow. Like you said, junior girls going and playing at certain clubs because ex-Matildas or Matildas played there previously. Like, the flow on is definitely there. It's just going to take time to continue to grow.
So obviously, having travelled internationally fostered a lot of beautiful connections with international referees. And I think that's such a beautiful element when there are language barriers, and the fact that, football is such a special sport in connecting people. It ended World War I, and the fact that people can bond over a sport and not have any, not need to say anything more to that to establish beautiful relationships is so special, and something that a lot of us don't get to be privy to. Can you talk to us about some of the special relationships you've formed with girls internationally?
Yeah. So I mentioned before about the girls that I've met from Iran, and it's just like, been an incredible experience to get to hear about what life is like for them, and, some of the problems and things that they encounter and the challenges that they encounter in their life versus the challenges that we encounter here in Australia as women. But I think like the big standout for me was, so in 2019, when I first became FIFA assistant referee, went to Malaysia, and you go there for a selection course. And we were there with like, I don't know, maybe like 30 other referees from all around. And I met 2 girls from Afghanistan. And we probably didn't talk a lot at that course, if I'm honest. And because their English was very limited. That's probably the main reason. But we added each other on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and that was it. We didn't talk for like 2 years. Then we're in the middle of lockdowns here in Australia, or in Melbourne specifically, and it became known that the Taliban was going to take over Afghanistan again because the US were pulling out. And I remembered my friend who was there, my referee friend that I'd met in 2019. And I felt really sad. Like, I think it was a very emotional time because we were in lockdown and life was challenging and all of those things. But I felt sad for her, knowing her situation. There was a lot of media attention, I think, around women and the loss of a lot of women's rights in Afghanistan with Taliban coming in based on, history and what, they'd been like in the past. And I think that, I sat there, and Stella could probably remember this. I feel like I sat in our house and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to reach out to her because I didn't know if that's like triggering. Like, is it triggering for me to go, are you okay? Like, knowing that I'm here in Australia and, what can I do to help her? I think I waited like 24 hours and then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to message her. So I messaged her and I was like, hey, obviously we're hearing about what's happening in your country here in Australia. I just want to check that, you're okay, kind of thing. And she responded and said that she was really scared and she was effectively waiting in her house for the Taliban to come and, raid their house and because they'll find out that she's an athlete, right? So,
And that makes women in sport in Afghanistan targets, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, she told me that, and then I was like, what do I do with that? Like, what could I possibly do here in Australia, living my cushy life in lockdown? My heart broke for her. And I remember like crying and just feeling so helpless and sad about it. And then she reached out to me again and told me that her husband was here in Melbourne. So she'd gotten married, but she was waiting for her visa to come through. So it was sort of like I feel like we almost had like a ticking time frame of like, well, if we don't get her here, if she doesn't come soon, she's not going to be able to get out of Afghanistan, which is what I thought the situation would end up being. And I think a lot of us thought that's how it would be. So anyway, I kind of was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, there was a petition, I think, where you could write to like a government official or something, trying to write a letter and say, can you get this person's partner visa pushed through or something like that. I think I did that. I wrote that letter, but expected nothing from it. Then I had a mentor in football who was an assistant referee like I am now. And I was talking to her and I told her about it. And she was like, oh, well, like, so she's part of a group of women in football in Australia. She was like, oh, well, there's actually something happening that some lawyers have like come together and they're going to try get the Afghan national women's team out of Afghanistan and bring them to Australia. And I was like, oh, whoa. She's like, you should speak to them, let them know about the referee too. But there was 2 referees. And like, we'll just see, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, all right. And so, I guess long story short, that kicked off the process to give her hope and gave me hope. And I spoke to one of the main organisers of this rescue mission, effectively, which is what it was. And we got her name and the other referee added to the list. So they had a list of people that they were going to be rescuing at the airport. And then it became the mission of trying to get them out, which was like, a very long story. I could talk about it for a long time, but I think Stella remembers like me sitting by my phone and waiting to hear that they'd made it through for like a couple of days. Like, it was so stressful. And we were seeing in the media how terrifying it was there. And all of the pictures and videos of people climbing onto planes, and the situation at the Kabul airport was like shocking. Anyway, so long story short, she got on the plane. She left her family, brought her sister. They left Kabul on a cargo plane, sitting. I've got like photos. They're sitting in the back of a cargo plane, getting out, which was just like wild. And now she's settled here in Australia, in Melbourne, and the connection, the friendship that we have is something incredible that would have never thought would happen, like ever. And we have football to thank for that. Like the course of her life has completely changed because of her involvement in football, which is just, it's just a mind-blowing thing that when I think about it, it's like, wow, I actually cannot believe that whole situation happened. But it also just makes me so like happy, and it kind of takes away from like, I can be like, yeah, I've been to a World Cup and, the day-to-day football, professional athlete kind of, or elite athlete aspect. But then when something like this happens, you're like, oh, wow, like it's so much more than that. You've changed someone's life, possibly saved her life, which is, something really special.
That's so amazing. And I think that really speaks to the power of community and that fighting spirit to look out for one another. And it just took you sending that message, reaching out, and the flow-on ripple effect that had to change the course of your friend's life is astounding.
Yeah, it's if it wasn't for football, none of that, I would have never spoken to my mentor, who she was actually being mentored. They'd set up a mentor program within their group, and that's how she knew about this rescue mission. So it's like, it was just the constant flow on of the connection of football that led to this outcome.
Wow.
Crazy.
And last night, one of the girls had us over for dinner, which was really beautiful, and we got to meet her family and now her son, who's 6 months old. And the first thing she kind of said when we walked through the door was that she just can't wait to get back into football refereeing. And she's like so excited for that. And that's such a beautiful full circle moment that she's here and she's safe, still trying to get her family. And like a lot of the girls that fled still trying to get their families over, which is really stressful. But the fact that you were even able to help one person and were involved in so many initiatives to, get together charitable items and help these girls have a good start in Australia is really special. And I'm sure a moment that will forever have changed your life and theirs as well.
Yeah, like we got to connect with, when I say we, like Stella and I got to connect with the rest of the Afghan national team, the girls, which I've formed also friendships with them. And it's like, I didn't even know them before that point, but now they're here, and we gathered all these items to help them out when they first got here, because they came with nothing, right? Like that's the other thing. They came with nothing. They went to the airport and they waited there for so long. They had most of them just had a backpack on their bag. And they come here, they're quite young, no family. So providing that support and seeing them be so successful now, like they're so settled, and the situation is just it's still improving for them, obviously, like it's not end state by any means, but it's just a very heartwarming experience to be a part of, and get to witness and be involved in because of football. Like crazy.
I'll never forget that time that we went to the city, and I think they were all staying in some accommodation in the city. There were like, I don't know, 100 people or more maybe. And it was a beautiful moment of like coming back to the beauty of football, because all the girls, no matter what they had just been through, being in a new country, all the emotions that they're feeling, they grabbed a soccer ball. We all went out to that, small grassed area, and they were kicking the ball around and having so much fun. And there were really little kids and babies and adults and, the girls from the team. And I feel like that was a special memory for me, seeing that.
Yeah, that was like, because we had the lockdowns and isolation and stuff like that. I think they were all housed in some temporary accommodation in the city, and it was amazing. Yeah, really cool.
So, Nava represents the core values we explore in our podcast, and each letter of Nava stands for an essential aspect of personal and professional growth. N is for navigate. Joe, can you share a pivotal moment in your career where setting clear goals played a significant role in your success?
I think my journey to the World Cup is probably one of those. I guess there was opportunity. To be honest, like my goal was 2027 World Cup, not 2023. So I was planning for 2027, which was obviously, from 2020 was 7 years out. So, but I still had like the foundational things like in place of like, how to get there and what I needed to do and those sorts of things. And obviously it came 4 years earlier. Well, the opportunity came to me 4 years earlier, and it was obviously up to me whether I would grab that opportunity and do everything I could to get there, or kind of let it pass me by. And so obviously worked my ass off for it. And once the opportunity came to me, I was like, okay, well, what do I need to do? Got a mentor who was so pivotal in a lot of the preparation for the World Cup. I've got so many mentors, so there was a few people obviously that played different roles, but I think that was really important in formulating a plan and setting goals of where I wanted to go and the checkpoints, because 3 years is a long time. We're not talking like, I want to run a marathon in 3 months' time. How am I going to get there? It's like 3 years is like ups and downs, and, managing so many different things. So, I think that process was, quite long, but I think the most important thing is to make sure you've got the right people around you to help you, because you can't do it on your own, especially if you've never done it before and you don't know what to expect. You really have to have people that know and can advise you and guide you and, help you identify the right things to work on to get to that end goal.
Yeah, it's important, I think, to have external people that just can have a different perspective. And as I think a common theme in this conversation has been mentors, whether it be your dad or, that lady that had been refereeing for 5 years, or all these other different people that you've had. Just having those different mentors in your life, I think, makes a real big difference.
Yeah.
Then A is for aspire. What was your ultimate aspiration when you began your journey as a referee, and how has it evolved over time?
It's so funny. So when I first started refereeing, I had zero aspirations. None. Even as a player, I didn't have aspirations. I wasn't one of those girls that was like, I want to play with the Matildas, because I didn't even know about them, right? I was just playing because it was fun, and my team, we had a fun time. Football was the same. Sorry, when I say football, refereeing was the same. It was like just doing it. I don't know. Maybe I was present, maybe I was naive. I don't know, but maybe it was also that, again, coming back, and this is going to sound a bit cliche, but it's a bit of that you can't beat what you can't see, and that I didn't know what the options were. I didn't know what the pathway was. So how could I possibly have any aspirations, because I didn't know what existed. And then you kind of, I've spoken about this a fair bit recently. Football, like refereeing football, is interesting because it's not like, oh, this is my goal and then that's it. So when I first started refereeing, for example, I started refereeing on the Women's Premier League, and I was like, wow. And then your goal becomes, I want to referee a final of the Women's Premier League. Then you referee a final and you're like, okay, now what? Then they send you to nationals and you're like, oh, or even before that, you're like, I want to go to nationals. Then you go to nationals. Then you want to get on the W League. Then I got on the W League. Then I wanted to get a FIFA badge. Then I got a FIFA badge. Then I wanted to get on the A-League men's. And then I did that. And then I want to get on, like, you want to go to a World Cup. You go to a World Cup. What's the next thing? I want to go to an Olympics. I want to referee more men's football. Like, it's this constant, like, goals just keep changing. Like, it's not like you hit one and then that's it. Because there's so much opportunity for us as referees, especially as a female referee, I just don't know at what point that will end for me. At what point will I be like, I've hit enough goals that I'm satisfied with that? Like, it's yeah, there's so many opportunities, different opportunities for different things, and it's constantly changing. So I think that's probably what keeps me going as well, is the constant chase of the next goal. But it also then becomes super important to be able to celebrate when we achieve them, because you can very, very easily fall into the trap of always looking to the next thing and not actually like embracing and getting to feel the celebration of what you have achieved when you achieve it. So it's a balance. And I always have to pull myself down and be like, you know what? I need to celebrate this success. Like, this is amazing, whatever I've just done. Like, even though I still look forward to the next thing. Yeah.
That's really powerful. And I think people, depending on what career you're in, you don't always know what the end goal is or what end goal you actually want. And I liked how you were saying it was just each little step, slowly. And then that kind of expanded your horizons into different opportunities. And I think sometimes, and especially I was a teacher, this generation, I feel like forgets that it takes a lot of building blocks, lots of small steps, lots of learning until you can get somewhere. If you want to, you don't always have to see that end goal. Yeah. And I also loved how you kind of fell into it, and you would never have known this is where your life would lead, and look at these amazing people you're meeting and what you're doing and how you're growing as a person. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's something very special, I think, with what we do.
Yeah. V is for value. Balancing a demanding career like refereeing can be really tough. How do you prioritize self-care and well-being in your life?
It's been it's always a difficult balance. Work-life balance is challenging, I think, generally. I have tried many different things. I've seen psychologists, which is obviously something that, you know, is important for everyone. But as athletes, I think it's important to have the right mental help, because the mental aspect is also a really big part of what we do. I think that, and I said at the start when you asked me one word that describes me, reflective is something important. I think that that's something that I've really gotten into a lot over the last few years. And I think that helps me maintain good well-being, and especially mental and emotional well-being, having techniques and things to help bring you down when you feel triggered or highly emotionally charged, because, you know, you've had a big game and a lot of things happened and you feel really stressed, or you're trying to balance work and travel or whatever. There's so many different things, right? So I do a program that's called what's it called, Stella? To Be Magnetic. It totally just slipped my mind for a second there. It's an online program, but it's very much centered around that sort of reflection and understanding who you are and understanding why things might trigger you or make you feel a certain way, or why you behave a certain way. And yeah, I think that's become really important to me to maintain a good emotional and mental well-being in this crazy world that we live in. I think that's, like, you know, generally it's crazy and it's very difficult for everyone. But obviously everyone has different challenges, and I've found that program to be really helpful for me. And it's self-paced, and I can do it whenever I want to do it. Like if I'm on a long flight somewhere, I can pull up a deep imagining and just, you know, do some journaling, and can come anywhere with me. So I find that helpful.
That's great. I think definitely setting aside the time for our mental health and reflection and understanding ourselves better and our actions and our patterns. Because if we don't spend time thinking about who we are and what we do and why, we can very easily just keep chugging along.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the last one is achieve. Achieving success often involves overcoming obstacles. What's a major obstacle you faced in your career, and how did you overcome it?
I had many obstacles. I think the biggest one that most people will be able to relate to, especially women, like being that this is obviously women's podcast, I think is feeling like we're not good enough. Because I think we all experience imposter syndrome as women at some point in our lives, whether that's at work, whether that's could be with friends, like I don't know. But in sport, I feel like it's quite prominent, and that's something that has hit me at various stages in football and even in my career. Like I feel like it's a constant battle. I think it's like part of the work, obviously, of what I was just talking about before in terms of the program that I'm doing helps with that. I think that it also kind of brings back that you can't be what you can't see, and having what we call expanders, but people that are doing things that you want to do. So like when I see and the World Cup was amazing for this because I got to meet all these women that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I see what you do, like you referee on the men's league in Brazil, like you're incredible. Or like the girls in England that referee on the EPL, and it's like, wow. So I think channeling some of their energy too and going, well, these girls do it, like why can't, there's no logical reason why I can't do it. Especially because I'm trying to become more experienced in men's football. So you come up, not against, I don't want to use the word against, but you come up with your male counterparts that do what you do, but they're men. And it's just become so obvious to me that not a lot of men experience imposter syndrome. And then you kind of go, well, why do we experience it as women? Why does it affect us that we have so much? We will always question our ability for things. We'll always question if we're good enough. It takes a while for us to go, you know what, I am good enough. Like we need a lot of proof and evidence to go, yeah, I'm good enough. So, yeah, I think it's a constant battle. I think I've started to realize that we are good enough and we just need to believe that we're good enough, because believing that you're good enough is half the battle. Once you believe that you're good enough, a lot of everything else will come with that. It's the stress of I'm not good enough, questioning yourself, not having confidence. That's what holds us back. It's not the actual ability to do things. It's the mental aspect. So, I think that's something that, again, it comes in ebbs and flows. I'm definitely not in a place where I'm like, oh, I don't have any imposter syndrome. Like I'm always confident and whatever. Like definitely not the case. But it's also just being aware of it and going, this is imposter. Like what I'm experiencing right now, this is imposter syndrome. It doesn't mean it's not real, but I have to just try to, disassociate a little bit with it and have techniques to, let it not be a problem. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for coming on today. We know you've got to get back to your business analyst life. So thanks for taking time out of your day to do this. We really appreciate it. And it's been really valuable and so special that it's been with you too. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
That's a wrap for this episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
And remember, you can always find more episodes and updates on our website and social media page. You can find us on Instagram at nava.podcast. Until next time,
keep chasing your dreams and making your mark on the world.